So I said this at the beginning, but I'm going to say it again. This version, APA 7, the manual is so much better written and so much more useful and user-friendly than the previous versions of APA. It really is awesome. Chapters 8 and 9 and 10 are going to become near and dear to your heart throughout your master's studies. A couple of specific things in Chapter 8, works credited in the text. The entire chapter is very important, and I promise you, you will be coming back to this time and time again. But first and foremost, 8.2 talks about plagiarism, and then they move into self-plagiarism in 8.3. You are really going to want to pay attention to that because people do it accidentally and get themselves in trouble. Set yourself up for success. Don't fall into those traps. And then in 8.4, this is another area that people get into trouble. Here's the rule. Except for personal communications, which only go in the narrative. If it's in the narrative, if it's in the body of the work, it has to be on the reference page. If it's in the reference page, it has to be in the paper. You cannot have something only in the paper, not on the reference page. And if it's on the reference page and it's not in the paper, that's considered a lack of academic integrity because it looks like you're trying to pad the paper without actually using the resource. So it is crucial that you become familiar with how and when we cite, whether it's quoting or paraphrasing. And at the master's level, both are important, but remember, paraphrasing demonstrates that you truly understand what the theorist or author or expert you're talking about. You're putting their expert ideas into your own words. You're giving them credit for the base of the idea, but you're putting it into your own words. That's very impressive, as opposed to what we call Frankensteining a paper, where it's quote, 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 and by the time you get to the end of the paper, you don't know if the person actually understood all of those quotes. Something to think about. Chapter 8 gives you the proper format for paraphrasing, for short quotes, for long quotes. I'm telling you, it's beautifully written. 8.10 is where they start talking about specifics with in-text citations. 8.11, where they go into the difference between parenthetical and narrative citations, which are different writing styles, and you want to use both. Section 8.12 goes into citing multiple works. And then 8.17, told you there's a lot in this chapter, numbers of authors to include in text citations. Now, I did mention that the inside cover has a tiny little chart, a really broken down but minute cheat sheet on this. It's far more broken out in section 8.17, and there's even a table to give you wonderful clarity in this. And then when we get into the paraphrases and the quotations, this entire section is very important. 8.25 talks about principles of direct quoting. 8.26 talks about short quotes. There's a brilliant table that gives you wonderful examples. And then 8.27 is the block quotes. 40 words or more has to be a block quote. All right, friends, I'm telling you, Chapter 8 is going to become your best friend.